Most XRP investors go their entire lives without hearing the kind of warning that slipped out recently. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't even meant for the general public, but a well-respected analyst made a statement during a routine discussion that revealed far more than anyone expected. A quiet truth about XRP's future that most holders are completely unprepared for. Before we get into it, take a moment to like this video so more XRP holders get access to research instead of recycled speculation. Subscribe to our channel so you stay ahead of every structural shift. And remember, this is not financial advice. As of now, XRP is trading in the low $2 range. Here's what happened. During a conversation about global liquidity stress, the analyst referenced a concept he normally never discusses publicly, the point at which the global financial system will no longer be able to operate on delayed settlement. Not 5 years from now, not someday, but much sooner than most people realize. And in explaining that transition, he accidentally revealed the moment XRP becomes indispensable. The moment the system is forced to rely on a neutral asset to bridge liquidity across markets that are tightening all at once. He didn't mention XRP by name. He didn't need to. The mechanics he described could only function with an asset that looks exactly like XRP. Neutral, fast, liquid, globally scalable, and already connected to institutional corridors. The part he wasn't supposed to say was this. There is a structural limit to how long the current financial system can maintain slow settlement under rising liquidity pressure. When gold flows tighten, when bond markets rotate violently, when tokenized assets begin moving 24 hours a day, the rails of the old system simply cannot keep up. And when they fail to keep up, the market is forced into the asset that solves the problem. That is the moment he accidentally pointed to. The moment XRP transitions from an investment to infrastructure. Most holders have no idea this turning point exists. They think surges happen because of hype, retail momentum, or news cycles. But the analyst's remark made it clear XRP's surge will begin when global liquidity behavior reaches a specific threshold, one tied directly to macro stress, not to sentiment. And that's why this warning matters so much. He exposed a truth Ripple has hinted at for years. XRP's real value emerges when the liquidity of gold, bonds, and tokenized assets must be bridged in real time. That is when the system has no choice but to reroute through the rails built for the future. In the next section, we're going deeper into what that threshold actually is, how gold, bonds, and global liquidity cycles converge, and why this convergence is the reason the analyst's accidental warning changes everything for XRP. To understand the weight of that accidental warning, you have to understand the threshold he was referring to. A point in the global financial system where liquidity, settlement speed, and market structure collide. Most XRP holders never think about this layer because it's not visible on a chart, but it's the layer institutions monitor constantly because it dictates when they must shift to faster rails. The threshold begins in the gold market. Gold is one of the oldest settlement anchors on Earth, and whenever global uncertainty rises, demand accelerates. But gold still settles through slow, fragmented channels. When flows tighten, as they are now, custodians, banks, and liquidity providers face a problem. They have to move value faster than the rails can support. The analyst's comment pointed directly at this pressure. Then comes the bond market, the real driver of global liquidity. Bonds dictate interest rates, sovereign risk, and capital rotation. And when rates move sharply, liquidity shifts violently across markets. This creates enormous settlement burdens. Large trades must clear in seconds, not days. When bond volatility is high and settlement infrastructure lags, institutions look for neutral, interoperable pathways to stabilize the movement of value. That need for stabilization is the second piece of the threshold, and the third piece is tokenization, the part most analysts still underestimate. As more assets become tokenized, their liquidity no longer sleeps. It moves 24 hours a day, crossing borders, custodians, and networks with no downtime. But tokenized liquidity can only move if settlement can match its speed. Otherwise, you get bottlenecks, slippage, capital traps, and regulatory risk. Put these three pressures together, gold flow tightness, bond market rotation, and non-stop tokenized movement, and you get a system approaching its breaking point. This is the convergence the analyst was referring to. This is the moment where delayed settlement becomes a systemic liability, and once that liability gets too large, the market has to shift to the only type of settlement architecture that can handle global, always-on liquidity, real-time bridging through a neutral asset. That asset must be jurisdiction agnostic, extremely fast, capable of high throughput, liquid across borders, already integrated into institutional corridors, and designed to function as settlement infrastructure. There are very few assets on Earth that meet these requirements, and XRP is one of them. This is why the analyst's casual remark matters. He wasn't predicting a surge. He was describing the exact mechanism that triggers it. When gold, bonds, and tokenized assets rotate at the same time, the rails of the old system don't just strain and they fail to absorb the liquidity. And when liquidity cannot move through traditional rails, it is forced into the rails that can. That is the real surge catalyst. Not hype, not retail speculation, not headlines, systemic necessity. Most retail holders completely miss this. They are watching short-term charts, while institutions are watching settlement cycles. They wait for green candles, while analysts track bottlenecks, throughput stress, and corridor friction. They look for news. Institutions look for liquidity cracks. In the final section, we're going to break down why this threshold is no longer theoretical, why the system is already showing signs of compression, why Ripple's public statements align perfectly with this moment, and why the analyst's leaked warning is not a prediction. It is a timeline. The most important part of this entire discussion, and the reason the analyst's comment matters so deeply, is that the threshold he described is not hypothetical. It's not decades away. It's not an abstraction. The global financial system is already showing signs that the compression phase has begun. The pressure points he outlined are visible right now to anyone who understands how liquidity cycles behave when markets move into transition. Start with gold. Over the past year, gold flows have tightened at a pace that historically signals global uncertainty and rising liquidity stress. Whenever that happens, financial institutions begin accelerating their internal movement of collateral reserves and settlement buffers. But gold still settles on rails built generations ago, rails that were never meant for the speed or scale demanded by a digital global market. When gold pressure rises while settlement remains slow, liquidity imbalances form, and institutions begin searching for alternatives. They never announce this publicly. They allow the flows themselves to reveal the underlying need. Then we look at bonds. Bond markets dictate the rhythm of global liquidity, and right now that rhythm is unstable. Sharp rotations, sudden yield shifts, elevated volatility. All of these force institutions to move capital faster, hedge faster, and rebalance faster. Yet, the settlement infrastructure supporting bonds has barely evolved. It is slow, fragmented, and increasingly incompatible with real-time market dynamics. When bond volatility rises faster than settlement speed can accommodate, the strain moves into every connected market. That strain has already begun. Next comes tokenization, the most underestimated piece of the entire puzzle. Once assets become tokenized, they do not operate on banking hours. They do not wait for wire cutoffs. They do not pause on weekends. They move continuously, globally, and instantly. But they cannot achieve true global liquidity unless the settlement rails themselves function in real time. Tokenized value cannot coexist with outdated settlement infrastructure. Eventually, something has to give, and the system chooses the rails that can keep up. This is exactly what the analyst's leaked warning pointed toward the moment these pressures converge. The moment gold tightens, bonds rotate, and tokenized assets scale simultaneously. When these forces align, the old model of delayed settlement becomes a systemic risk. Liquidity trapped in slow rails becomes expensive. Capital locked in settlement lag becomes dangerous. And institutions are forced to transition to whatever can bridge value instantly across borders with no downtime and no dependency on a single jurisdiction. Ripple has been preparing XRP for that precise moment for more than a decade, not to fuel speculation, not to chase price cycles, but to solve the problem the analyst described, the need for a neutral, high-speed, scalable settlement asset when the global system reaches its threshold. And now we return to his accidental comment, the one he wasn't supposed to say. He described the conditions that trigger the transition. He described the compression. He described the convergence. He described the inevitability. He just did not connect the final dot. But we will, because the asset he described, the asset the system must rely on when gold, bonds, and tokenized markets squeeze together, is the asset Ripple built for this moment. XRP does not surge because retail investors become excited. XRP does not surge because of hype. XRP does not surge because of headlines. XRP surges when the system needs it, and right now the system is approaching that point of need far faster than most people realize. Liquidity cracks are appearing. Settlement friction is rising. Institutional corridors are widening. OTC availability is tightening. Tokenized volume is increasing. Ripple's own public statements have shifted from innovation language to implementation language, a change that only happens when institutions prepare to depend on new rails, not just test them. Most holders will only understand this after it happens. They will look back and realize the warning signs were everywhere. The liquidity pressure, the corridor expansion, the bond volatility, the tokenization mandates, the shift in institutional language, the analyst's accidental revelation. But you see it now before the system forces the transition, and that is why you are here. So before you go, support the community that actually pays attention to the signals that matter. Tap like so more XRP holders. Wake up to what's unfolding, Subscribe our channel so you never miss the institutional shifts the charts hide. And comment one word below, ready, because that is exactly what you are now. Most holders will never understand what's coming, but you do, and you'll be positioned when the system moves.